This is Berl Schwartz from City Pulse, and I am very pleased to have with me today via Zoom the President and CEO of the Lansing Regional Chamber of Commerce, Tim Daman. Tim, thanks so much for joining me today.
Oh, you're welcome, Berl. Thank you.
And well, I'm pleased to have you. Are you feeling like, oh, I'm in the hot seat as we watch the economy implode?
Boy, it's been an interesting last 2 months, right? And I said this. I think our team reminds me almost every week. I think we might be on week 9 now of where the chamber, we've been working remotely, and I think for the most part, almost everybody that's able to has been. And so, and I just know that when we made a decision on Friday, March 13th to begin working remotely, beginning on that Monday, March 16th, by the time we left the office on Friday to the time we woke up on Monday, our region, our state, our national, economy had changed drastically. And so it's been a whirlwind. That's for certain the last couple of months, and the impact to many businesses, individuals, organizations, and whatnot.
What are the kinds of questions and concerns that you are hearing from your members?
I think we continually, and we have from the beginning, Berl, and I think we've had 4 or 5 different levels of surveys that we've sent out to our business community here. And I think the consistent piece on that from really almost the beginning has been the cash flow scenario. And so that varies widely from being able to meet payroll to bills and all that. But really the cash flow piece, I think, has been the number one driver. But I think now is over the last couple of weeks, what we're beginning to see is, okay, how do we reopen, and what is this reopen strategy going to look like? And I think that by far now that's the biggest and largest amounts of questions that we're receiving from businesses here in our region.
I'm curious what your reaction was to the barber on Michigan Avenue who tried to open and got shot down. Did you feel for him? Did you feel angry?
You know what? I have to be honest. I think the barber from Owasso has garnered all the headlines on that, and so I haven't followed too closely on what happened there. I do know, and being on a call with a number of other folks a week ago, and Mayor Shore was part of that, and the mayor did mention that had happened, but I did not follow that very closely as to what and how that happened. I don't know that I would feel angry. I mean, I think you have a number of small business owners that are probably ready to go back, and maybe they feel strongly that they've been able to put into place protocols to provide a safe environment for maybe their employees and maybe for their customers as well. And so I think that we're going to begin to see more of that, maybe anxiety, if that's the right term, as we get through the next couple of weeks here. I mean, in Michigan, we measure things by our holidays, right? So Memorial Day is the traditional kickoff of our summer season, and that means people want to be outdoors, they want to be active and moving. And so what's that going to look like here as we get through the end of this month?
Yeah, in fact, the governor just commented on a New York Times story today that says Michigan ranks last in terms of people staying home. What is it about Michigan, Tim? I'm not a Michigander. I moved here. But people with guns and in the Capitol, and people just, all the governor's trying to do is save your life here.
Well, I would agree with that. I think that everyone, I say this all the time as I try to, when we've had these conversations on what this looks like, I always say is like, let's put our, personal philosophies and let's set them aside. But at the end of the day, we need that guidance from the state. And I do think that Governor Whitmer has done a terrific job in managing this crisis for us. When you're in a leadership role, no matter what decision you make, you're going to get hammered by somebody, right? And so have there been things that she would do differently? I would guess that would be the case. We probably all would say that over the last couple of months. But I think for the most part, she's done a great job in managing this. And I agree. I think she has the safety of our residents as a top priority. And having said that, I do think that we have to find ways to bring this economy back online. And to me personally, I think the manufacturing piece is going to be a significant barometer for our state. I think it's going to provide some confidence maybe to our elected leaders, provide some confidence to our residents as well that, you know what, businesses can safely and successfully, reopen here. So I really do think here in the next week or two, as manufacturing gets online, I think it can be a really good barometer for us in moving forward.
Getting back to the earlier part of your comments, a poll shows the governor and getting one of the higher approval ratings nationally of governors. I think 72% of Michiganders support her. Tim, you mentioned some big picture stuff. At first, it was, a question of just getting people some kind of income to get through this, and now we're faced with reopening. Let's look at the first part of that. We have this payroll protection program that I presume a lot of your members have availed themselves of. What are you hearing about that? Are people, is that helping, or is it something that may be more helpful later?
Sure. There are a lot of, I think the one consistency we've heard on the payroll protection program has been the outlining the guidelines for this and what does that look like. There obviously was a tremendous amount of frustration, I think, when you look across the country. Unfortunately, we have not been able to fully determine how many businesses here in our region, received loans. I will tell you anecdotally, in talking to, let's say, 50 small businesses, I would say 50% of them were successful in achieving some level of a PPP loan. So we do think that it has a short-term benefit. I think that we would encourage everybody to make sure that they're working with their CPAs and legal counsel on what and how that looks. I did hear earlier this week, I think there's conversations on extending the loan processing, or not the loan processing, but the period from 8 weeks to 12 weeks. And so I think just really continuing to, reinforce or read and develop those guidelines for what and how those loans can be applied. So very cumbersome process. It seems like for us in our region, and what I heard was that a lot of our smaller community banks had a greater success rate. But again, I'm going anecdotally here and not having any final numbers from our institutions, but we do know we had a number of them that were participating and processing, thousands and thousands of loans here in our region. So to answer your question, I don't know if I have or not, but I guess to really get down to it, answer it, do we know right now? I think it's probably still too early to tell, but I think that as we get through, closer to the end of the second quarter and into the third quarter, I think we'll have a better handle on what those PPP loans are going to look like and how successful they were in keeping some businesses afloat.
Tim, you have President Trump on one end saying the economy is going to come back and it'll be stronger than ever. And then we have people on the other end saying, this economy is not coming back anytime soon. Look for something closer to the Depression and even the Great Recession. What are you hearing from the people you rely on for crystal ball gazing?
Yeah, sure. So, we were actually able to host Charlie Evans, the Chicago Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago president and CEO, a week or so earlier this week, actually. And so I think when you listen to some of the economists, you think about the fact when they say the end of this year we could see unemployment levels kind of falling back down to the 9% range, and really in 2021 kind of seeing that significant uptick. And if we're lucky by the end of 2021, we'll have the unemployment levels in that 5%. So having said all that, when you look about this in pre-COVID, with our unemployment levels were somewhere in that 3%, hovering there, and had been for quite some time, that's still a pretty significant uptick, when you project out 18 months. So, I still remain optimistic though, Berl. I think the second quarter here is going to continue to be tough. And I think that we have to figure out a way that right now we're halfway through the second quarter. How do we find ways to finish this as strong as we possibly can? That's the reason I'm going to remain an advocate for safely but successfully bringing economy back online, because I think we need to get people back to work. I think we need to get businesses open. I think we need to reinstill confidence and trust in our employees and in the community and within customer base and supply chain. So how do we finish this second quarter as strong as we possibly can and set ourselves up to kind of relaunch in this third and fourth quarter? So for our region, pre-COVID, $3 billion worth of economic development and investment projects. And so how do we come out of here with that same energy and same level of enthusiasm or energy to get that, to kind of keep things moving?
Tim, the governor now has announced she's going to furlough, essentially limited layoffs, but for nearly 2/3 of state employees in order to try to save $80 million. This obviously has quite an impact locally. What does this mean to Greater Lansing?
So, Berl, it's significant. So I've said for the last 2 weeks, as we've been having these reopen conversations, I think that there are 3 businesses and entities that our region is going to turn to as kind of setting the tone. And 1 is state government, 2 was General Motors, and 3, Michigan State University. And so defining how each one of those 3, reopens and begins operations again. Not that they're not now, but what does that look like? What is it going to look like for Michigan State University and bringing students back in the fall on campus, in-person learning, online learning? Those are all significant decisions, right? But that's a big announcement, especially for our downtown restaurants and retailers. And I don't know that we know right now what that's going to look like, but that is going to have a significant impact on those businesses that are already being just decimated from having, the state going remote. So one of the 3 we know is going to be out for another couple, 2 or 3 months. And so what does it look like with GM beginning operations again on May 18th? And again, I think we all have to have the confidence and trust that they've put the protocols in place, that they're going to keep their people safe and in a safe work environment, that they're going to come back online and be successful. Then the third piece of this is Michigan State. And I think we, we'll look to an announcement here sometime, hopefully in the next 45 to 60 days on what the university's plans are for bringing 50,000 students back. And I've heard the university folks say, and what a tough spot they're in, because if they bring everyone back and they do on campus in person, learning, and there's an outbreak, devastating to our region potentially. If they don't bring 50,000 students back, and you think about the impact to the East Lansing business community and to our region, potentially devastating. So they have a very, very difficult decision right now, and one that could really tilt what the remainder of 2020 looks like for our region. And I think that's the biggest thing, is it's such an unknown. We just don't know what next week is going to look like, let alone what September will look like or December of this year will look like.
I think you're right to measure how serious this is we have an economy here basically with 3 legs. And generally that's meant, okay, we suffered in the Great Recession, but Lansing did okay compared to a lot of places. Maybe we will do better than a lot of places because we have the 3 legs, but this one feels scarier.
I think it is. I think it's the, I guess again, personal thoughts on this, but it's that uncertainty of not knowing. And I think whenever us just by nature as humans, when there's that uncertainty out there and the unknowns, I think that causes a little bit more probably anxiety and nervousness. But, I think you're right that 3 legs of our regional economy has proved to be very beneficial for us over the years with what and how we weather some of these economic, downturns and so forth. And so as much as we have diversified our economy, and I maintain that we have one of the most diverse regions in the state of Michigan with what we're seeing in other aspects of it, again, I think that those 3 will really set a direction with what and how we're going to look post-COVID.
Another factor is if businesses do reopen, will people are out. I know I've literally had only one outsider in my residence, let alone, I'll go grocery shopping. But I just told my cleaning crew, who have not been here in a couple of months, no, I'm not ready yet. How do we get over that psychological hurdle I think a lot of people are going to have?
Yeah, and it's that's a great question, and it's one that we pulled together a relaunch Greater Lansing task force, and hopefully we can talk about that here in a few minutes. But as the first meeting we had, we talked about three to four areas, and one was a goal of helping employers put together the guidelines they need to successfully reopen. But in order to do that, there were three things that the group talked about. One was, how do you regain, rebuild trust and confidence for your employees to come back to work? Are you providing a safe work environment for them to come back to work? Two, how do you do the same thing for your customers? So are the customers going to have confidence in frequenting and coming back into your place of business? And the third piece of that was this broader community at large. And so we kind of took those, three things in mind as we began putting together some things. And then I think the fourth piece of this, Berl, is that, again, I'm going to just go back to, construction, real estate, and manufacturing, and the governor, announcing and letting those industry sectors go back to work last week with construction and real estate, and now with manufacturing. Can we see a successful relaunch of those areas of our economy? And if we do, does that build some, consumer confidence? Does that rebuild confidence for yourself, for myself, that, okay, you know what, we've seen other areas of our economy reopen, and here's what they've done, best practices. How do we now begin to apply those to some of our other smaller businesses, some small retailers and whatnot, that may be kind of rebuilding some of the confidence? So again, that's kind of how I'm viewing this. And again, as I kind of talked about finishing the second quarter strong, to me, those are a couple things we can do to maybe kind of help finish a little bit strong and get a launch for the third quarter.
Well, so we don't run out of time. Please talk to us about the initiative you just referenced.
Yeah, you know what? So we, as we were kind of assessing what was happening about 3 weeks ago, we weren't getting a lot of I think, guidance on the economy from the state. We were getting a lot of debates on the executive orders and state of emergencies and whatnot. And so we kind of huddled up with our leadership team and executive board. And we said, what can we do sort of post-COVID, and how do we kind of help our businesses begin thinking about a relaunch? So we held a kickoff meeting 2 weeks ago and began talking a little bit about this and identified those pieces that I just mentioned. And then after last week's meeting, the governor announced the Michigan Safe Start Plan and the fact that construction and real estate will be coming back online, and indications of manufacturing. So we felt that at that point in time, we felt really good about being very closely aligned with what the state was doing and kind of positioning our region for what this successful relaunch might look like. So we are working now on a comprehensive sort of digital resource guide. And so what we want to try and do, and what we've heard, Berl, from a number of businesses, is that this information is coming fast. It's coming from hundreds of different sources. How do I get through here and help me, sort through a lot of the clutter? So we're trying to put together a comprehensive resource guide. Again, it will be web-based, will be a digital version that will provide businesses with a one-stop place to go to for some guidance, for some information, as well as links to all of these resources. So it could be federal links to the CDC, it could be state links to the Safe Start program, to the Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity that's putting together guidelines and work groups for all of the industry clusters. It could be industry-related associations. I mean, the Michigan Restaurant and Lodging Associations put together a tremendous roadmap for bars and restaurants and whatnot, and how they can potentially come back online. So we're trying to compile all of that data, put it into a easy to access and navigate digital type publication that can help our region. And as far as we can tell, Berl, we're the only region in the state that's pulled together any type of task force like this and kind of working on it. So we're pretty excited about what it looks like. And again, time is of the essence. And at the same time, we want to make sure we put out something that is going to be, valuable to our, to our businesses.
That sounds like something that everyone in business will benefit from. I applaud you for that. Before we go, I want to talk to you a bit about how things may change permanently around here because of this. I'll give you as an example. I've heard this phrase several times, this statement several times: never waste a crisis. And I'm discovering with City Pulse, this has, we've lost a ton of print circulation because 60%, I think, or more of the places we were delivering to are closed. But our digital numbers are through the roof. It has forced us finally to develop a digital strategy because, and why this is an improvement is it's a lot cheaper to put out a newspaper online than it is on paper. And when we are back at full strength, I expect, our print circulation will go up some, but I think a lot of people will have formed a habit of reading City Pulse online. What do you see some big changes as a result of this? Ways businesses are going to have to reinvent themselves to succeed in the future?
The short answer, yes. And I think, Berl, you captured it right there yourself. And I think sometimes we forget this, and that, when you think about City Pulse, you're a small business owner, right? And you're a small business owner that's invested heavily. Yeah, that's invested heavily along this Michigan Avenue corridor. But I think you answered that. And, you've been forced to be innovative and be entrepreneurial and thinking about what your business model looks like. And so I think that's going to be the case for all of us. And I put the chamber in there as well, is that we've had to reinvent our organization. We've had to change our value proposition from where it was back in March. I mean, we're an organization, an entity that thrives on bringing people together and, providing these networking platforms. And that is not happening now. And I don't think that's going to be happening anytime soon. And so, we also have kind of entered into this digital world and virtual networking opportunities and webinars and whatnot. And so I think that we're all going to have to, to think about how we continue to be innovative and what this is going to look like. And, probably like yourself and many of the folks who are going to be, watching this, is that, well, what's the office layouts going to look like? What's office space going to look like? And I'm confident that, there are many employers who are looking at this now and saying, you know what, I have 25,000 square feet of office space right now. I've successfully demonstrated that we can work remotely. Do I need 10,000 square feet to effectively run my business? And so I think all of those things are going to have to be addressed. And I know that businesses are evaluating it now. And having said that, I'm still not one that is ready to say that we're all going to say, okay, everyone's working remotely from here on forward. I think there's great value in having people together and being able to interact with folks. But we certainly have demonstrated that we can do this via these digital platforms now, whether it's Zoom or Microsoft Teams or whatnot. So it's to me, that's the exciting piece. It's the uncertainty, and sometimes it's the nervousness. But to me, this is the exciting piece as we look forward as to how are we going to continue to innovate, within our business community here.
And I'm seeing in my staff, the older people want to work in the office. The younger people are so happy to be home, and everyone's productivity is pretty much the same. So, well, Tim, thank you so much for your time, and I wish you well, and please stay safe.
Yeah, you too, Berl. Thank you so much.
All right, and everybody who has been watching, thank you. This is part of an occasional series. We'll be talking soon to Bob Trezise, Tim's counterpart at the Lansing Economic Area Partnership, and we have other of these interviews online. So we hope you're enjoying this. Take care.